You've just wished a man a long life, friendless, bitter, full of regrets. But where do you think you're going to end up?
Your idea of having fun is tormenting yourself with time travel?
I just needed to see how it all started. The resentment, the isolation.
Why are you doing this to me? To yourself?
You're the child who made me the man I am today. Living forever in a simulated reality.
I'm not an AI. I'm real!
You are the future of nostalgia.
No. No. No! No! Is this what you wanted me to do? What you expected after your big villain speech? What was the end goal here? You just wanted to make me feel bad about myself? Newsflash, sunshine, I always feel bad about myself.
With a minor alteration to this code, I can put an end to your miserable existence.
Go on then! I'm waiting!
You'll die!
If you say so. I can't see it happening. You're an impotent, bitter old man looking back at the year you made a 40-episode weekly podcast, and you think I've got problems with nostalgia.
We do! Not everything is better just because it was made in the past.
Everything was made in the past, chump! That's how linear time works!
Then you know you can't fight the future.
No, but I can fight people older than me who don't know when it's time to let go of their toys.
Stop trying to debate me with logic and reason. Those are my weapons.
Logic and reason? What's logical about getting nostalgic for this year of hell? What's reasonable about wanting to make someone in it feel worse instead of better? Come on, future man, at least give me some pointers. Brexit, COVID, Black Lives Matter, where's it all going?
Well, it's...
Too hard for you? Here's an easy one. What happens in the next chapter of this book? Oh, you're rubbish.
I am not rubbish. I am a grim portent of the consequences of your nostalgic folly.
Nah, mate. I have something stronger than any nostalgia you can throw at me. Crippling self-consciousness! I know I like things that are not for me, but I don't try and impress my taste on other people. I know I talk myself in hypocritical circles, but part of it's just to contradict and dunk on Ernest Cline. And I know I make jokes about how being a shut-in is relatable, but that's just because I'm unwinding from having a job where I have to meet so many people.
Why do you think your confession will save you?
Because you're not the frigging ghost of Christmas future. You're all my fears and anxieties that have made a bad podcast. You're a jumped-up internet reviewer villain persona with delusions of grandeur. You are a carefully scripted allegory for the encroaching toxicity in nerd culture. We both are!
No, I am your lack of a conscience. I'm the nightmare you fell asleep in and woke up still in. I am the bullies you hate that
Does Eminem know you've been stealing his lyrics? Come on, man. Do you really think hating yourself's the new development?
Listen to me!
No. Never again. I'm going to do what no YouTuber has ever thought to do. I'm gonna edit you out.
You can't run from your problems forever.
I'm not running from my problems, I'm finding solutions. And I'm starting with the man in the mirror. See you in the future!
Destiny!
Not!
You cannot destroy my destiny!
I guess hindsight wasn't 2020 after all. Ba-dam bam ba-dam bam. Now, where were we? Welcome back to Ready Player None, the only podcast that says...
Game over, yeah!
Over the course of the previous 39 chapters, Wade has achieved one of his twin obsessions, locating the Easter egg and becoming the richest person in the world. And we all know what his other obsession was. So it's no surprise that for this final chapter, I've prepared some light relief to make up for the cherry on the shit sundae that is this denouement. Let's tear our hair out in the 40th and final chapter of this book, chapter 39. When Wade steps out of his immersion bay, Og is there waiting for him, congratulating him and scooping him up in a bear hug. Og tells him there's a bunch of chief executives and lawyers all waiting for him upstairs. But Wade's a little uneasy from the experience and doesn't want to meet them just yet. Og tells him he doesn't have to. They all work for you now, remember? Make the bastards wait as long as you like. He also promises Wade his personal lawyer to make sure no one messes with him. Wade thanks Og, saying he owes him. Nonsense, he said. I should be thanking you. I haven't had this much fun in decades. You did good, kid. H and Shoto are still inside their own immersion bays, holding press conferences for their own fandoms. This means that the last thing Shoto did in this book was saying "Arigato, Parzival-san," and bowing reverently, and the last thing H did in this book was be misgendered. Wade, eyes on the prize, asks which way Artemis went. Og directs him up and outside to his hedge maze. I'm just realising something about this as I'm reading it aloud. She's waiting for him in the centre. It's an easy maze. It shouldn't take you very long to find her. So Wade goes up and outside. The sun's on his face. The air's warm and dry. There's no clouds. It was a beautiful day. I think this is the first time he's been outside and it's not been horrible weather. Ernest Cline's writing has all the subtlety of a famous sledgehammer from a movie. The hedge maze covered several acres of land behind the mansion. The entrance was designed to look like the facade of a castle, and you entered the maze through its open gates. The hedges are 10 feet tall, so you can't cheat at it, but Wade doesn't need to. After wandering around for a while, he realises it has the same layout as the Atari game Adventure. I like the idea conceptually. Despite this book's terrible track record with redesigning things with modern sensibilities, on the one hand I do think it's a cute idea to design a hedge maze after an Atari game you fondly remember, which I do. But on the other hand, Ogden Morrow has way too much money that he could be using to help save the planet. Using his expert knowledge of Atari games, Wade finds his way to the centre of the maze. A large fountain stood there, with a detailed stone sculpture of Adventure's 3 duck-shaped dragons.
Oh man, that freaking duck swallowed both my pixels!
Each dragon was spitting a stream of water instead of breathing fire. And then I saw her. So, sitting at the centre of a maze, like a prize to be won, is Artemis. She sat with her back to him, clearly anxious. After working up the courage, Wade says, "Hello." Without turning to face him, Artemis responds in kind. And it was her voice. Artemis's voice. The voice I'd spent so many hours listening to. And that gave me the courage to step forward. Ugh. Shiver down my spine on that one. Wade walks around the fountain until he's directly in front of her. She looked just as she had in the photo I'd seen. Oh, you mean that photo that you illegally gained access to whilst doxing her? How romantic. She had the same Rubenesque body. Rubenesque? Was that just a polite way to say she's chubby? Fat isn't a 4-letter word. Oh, wait, I remember. There was that bit early on where he decried supermodel and porn star physiques. He's not like other guys. Body shaming is still body shaming, from either direction, Ernie. But unlike in that photo, she wasn't trying to hide the birthmark with a sweep of her hair. She had her hair brushed back so I could see it. More subtle symbolism from Ernest Cline. She's still not looking at him, so he breaks out the line, "You look just like I always pictured you," I said. Beautiful. Is that the picture of her you came up with in that parasocial relationship you had where you cyberstalked her blog to fill up a folder of screenshots of her avatar? Plus, I feel like leading with the word beautiful to someone with clearly low self-esteem is a line straight out of a pickup artist handbook. Her eyes gradually make their way up to his, starting at his feet, and she smiles nervously. "Well, what do you know? You look just like I always thought you would too," she said. "But ugly." That got a bit of a laugh out of me. Fine. And like the time you met H, the laugh between them dissipates the tension. They stare into each other's eyes for the first time in person. She introduces herself as Samantha, and he introduces himself as Wade. It's a bit of a moot point, though. One of the biggest missed opportunities of this book is not having Wade's level of familiarity with each character reflected in what the narrative refers to them as. In one chapter, the younger samurai was referred to as Shoto or Hakihide seemingly at random. There was that misstep where, after half a page of calling him Og, we got something like, "Morrow said, please call me Og." If Halliday's message is supposed to be about connecting with people in the real world, the narrative seems to do everything it can to have the characters' online personas distance them socially. Up to and including misgendering H. I say it's a moot point because from here onwards, Artemis/Samantha is referred to by neither name, only by she and her. Is this a deliberate affectation, trying to show that their relationship transcends any boundaries put up by the faces they show to other people? Or is it just another centrist Ernie cop-out, the interpersonal equivalent of the uncertainty hanging over the pressing of the big red button? She offers him the seat on the bench next to her, and when he sits down she asks what happens now. "We're going to use all of the moolah we just won to feed everyone on the planet. We're going to make the world a better place, right?" She grinned. "Don't you want to build a huge interstellar spaceship, load it full of video games, junk food, and comfy couches, and then get the hell out of here?" "I'm up for that too," I said, "if it means I get to spend the rest of my life with you." Ugh. That's been my yardstick for measuring Wade's morality for this entire book. The demonstrable evidence that he's been an asshole for 40 chapters. And here he is in the last chapter cracking wise about it. Hell, he's in full schmooze mode right now, so it almost comes off as if he's saying they'll save the world just to impress her. Artemis shyly dodges this proposal. We just met, you know. It wouldn't be a chapter of Ready Player One without a weird hang-up about meeting somebody. Wade goes all in with, I'm in love with you. She starts to cry and asks him if he's sure. He says he is. And she apologises for breaking things off and disappearing from his life. Wade's understanding, saying she did the right thing. The proof, after all, is that they won the egg. Fuck off. They share a smile, and Wade says they can take things nice and slow. I'm really a nice guy once you get to know me, I swear. He isn't. She laughed and wiped away a few of her tears, but she didn't say anything. Did I mention that I'm also extremely rich? I said. Of course, so are you, so I don't suppose that's a big selling point. Yeah, shy people love it when you keep pressing them on something. She tells him he doesn't need to sell her on anything. You're my best friend, my favourite person. He's the only other character she's ever significantly interacted with. She is relevant to the narrative only in ways she relates to him. You're my favourite person, by default. With what appeared to be some effort, she looked me in the eye. I've really missed you, you know that?
But her aim is getting better!
And then, working up his courage, he holds her hand, and they just sit there holding hands on a bench, reveling in the strange new sensation of actually touching one another. Sometime later, she leaned over and kissed me. It felt just like all those songs and poems had promised it would. What songs and poems? I can't believe, in this final chapter, I'm asking you to provide an example of a thing from another thing. It felt wonderful, like being struck by lightning. Right? It occurred to me then that for the first time in as long as I could remember, I had absolutely no desire to log back into the Oasis. End Ready Player One. Yep, that's where it ends. A very short chapter about Wade and Artemis in the garden. And that last line. It's following on from Halliday's anti-escapism screed from the end of the previous chapter. Wade, after forsaking self-maintenance for so long in favour of his virtual egg obsession, is finally content with spending time in the real world. He's too love-struck to realise that maybe the Oasis is the best option for getting in touch with billions of users worldwide to start ending that global poverty. That's the last impression that this book leaves us with. Talk about a final insult. And then we've got this culmination of romance that started on a foundation of lies and cyberstalking and continued through with rapport that was so poorly written that I thought she was a spy for the enemy. Wade's pursuit of Artemis has been compared with his pursuit of the egg in the text, and here she is a literal prize to be won at the end of a maze. Her agency is reduced to sitting around and waiting for him. And it's perpetuating the idea that persistence will win around a romantic target who clearly shows you no interest. This romance was always destined to fail because there was nothing there. All of it happened within the space of a page that constituted, what was it, a 6-month time skip? A river of words flowed between us. That's what you said. The only parts of the relationship we've been privy to are when they met and when they broke up. We've been given no reason to be invested in this relationship. And that is this book's major flaw. We're given no reason to be invested in anything. Ernest Cline goes off at length explaining Blade Runner or the Space Giants or adventure, arcade games, movies, TV shows, you name it. We're never given any reason to actually like them. It's juvenile in the way it expects recognizing something to be enough, and it results in a tone that makes everything impossible to take seriously. Artemis's devastating quote-unquote breakup with Wade takes place in an amorphous blob dance club DJ'd by R2-D2. Daito's death happens when he's coming down from the high of bashing helicopters out of the sky on the Zork playing field while cosplaying as a giant Ultraman. The lack of engagement is true of the characters too. We're intended to sympathise with Wade at the start of this book. We're supposed to want to see him escape his life circumstances. But he never has a shred of introspection. His liking of things only because his hero likes them, his well-actuallying of video game trivia, his borderline parody preoccupation with his own coolness. All of it seems to earmark a change in behaviour that never arrives. He's a wildly unlikable guy. We're shown the tasks that he has to complete to achieve his goal, but the tasks have no tension to them because he always knows exactly what to do, and they're always presented with this veneer of nostalgic reverence. His aptitude for Halliday's challenges is so ridiculous that it's almost like he's speedrunning the plot. You can sum it all up with this memorable line from chapter 11. Without even knowing it, I totally overprepared. this book is a wish fulfillment for one man to such an extent that it was always a dead certainty that Wade was going to achieve all of his goals. I've been treating it like that for weeks. We all knew he was going to win the prize and get the girl, and there was just no reason to become invested in any of it. This book is plodding and pedestrian and bloated, and the temptation there is to call it gentle or placid. But there's a hard edge to it. Wade is misogynist, homophobic, transphobic. The narrative itself relies on racist stereotypes for one ethnicity and excludes another for the sake of a go-nowhere plot twist. The whole world of this book is so dystopian and ass-backwards that it makes the 80s look like an improvement, with none of the characters actively doing anything to improve society. Can we not have some selflessness from our hero? And don't you dare say that caring for the well-being of Artemis makes him selfless. All he cares about is how she relates to him. And the biggest head-scratcher is why even have omniscient future Wade? I was almost certain that the end of this book would be about Wade reliving his previous adventures through VR. Instead, it's just a telling of his side of the story that somehow manages to be both warts and all and lacking in any introspection. Some of his failures are glossed over to make him sound like an invincible hero, but he also wears his poor hygiene and predatory behaviour with pride. The narrative voice being an older Wade results in it being a dead cert that he succeeds, and only provides slight context for developments in the future. You know, that's... Hold on, I've got to look this up. Chapter 11. Wade's in the War Games simulation. When GSS got wind of the War Games simulation inside the first gate, and they did a short time later, the company quickly patented the idea and began to buy up the rights to old movies and TV shows and convert them into immersive interactive games that they dubbed FlickSyncs. We're not shown that happening in this book, and that excerpt is only provided by the Wade of the future, after dozens of books, cartoons, movies and miniseries have come out trying to tell his story. That's got to be far future. My reading of this is that Wade patented the FlickSync idea himself when he was in charge of GSS, because we've got no other contact at the company. Yeah, the GSS executives have been conspicuously absent throughout this entire thing. How do they feel about their entire company being bought out by the first person to solve all the Easter egg puzzles? Anyway, what I'm saying is that the future narrator situation was a mistake, and between the implied future timescale and the announcement of the sequel, the anti-escapism moral is completely out of the window. In fact, having first-person narration at all was a mistake. Wade holding the same media opinions as the author, up to and including owning the same ridiculous Ghostbusters Back to the Future Buckaroo Banzai car, means that, well, as young Jacob once put it in the YouTube comments, incredible how Ernest Cline puts his entire ass on display every chapter. This book just says so much without ever really meaning anything. The moral of Ready Player One, from the worsening state of the world outside of the Oasis to Halliday's final regrets, is that there is a time and a place for escapism, but not at the expense of confronting your problems. And it's a shame, because it's a good message, but it's so bogged down and obfuscated by regressive nostalgia that it baits the consumption crowd that'd sooner list all the Easter eggs and references than learn a lesson. That is, if they even notice the lesson, tacked on like it's an afterthought after 95% of the book is done. The lack of commitment to the moral makes you wonder if Ernest even believes it himself. My moral is that if you like something, try not to make it the entirety of your personality. Don't call someone a fake fan if they don't competitively memorize trivia like you do. In fact, don't call anyone a fake fan at all. Or don't feel like you have to prove your fandom to anyone who aggressively quizzes you about it. Together, we can put a stop to gatekeeping, because hobbies should be for everyone. Don't tolerate intolerance. Oh, and eat the rich. Now, I did flip through the reviews in the very front of the book, so I'll just take a look through the back matter and the acknowledgements, see if there's anything exciting going on in there. No, it's just a list of thanks to the people who could have stopped Ernie at any time but failed to. The people whose insufficient media literacy allowed this book's toxic culture, racist stereotypes, queerphobic remarks and predatory behaviour to slip through. Also, as a weird note, the grammar changed slightly as we got into the late 30s. The use of commas and sentence fragments were marginally different. The part last week about Lefkoshar, quoted from earlier in the book, abbreviates Dungeons & Dragons to D&D, when the part it was originally quoting had it as D, the word and D. I think even the proofreaders fell asleep at the wheel. I would like to draw attention to this final paragraph. Finally, I want to thank all of the writers, filmmakers, actors, artists, musicians, programmers, game designers, and geeks whose work I've paid tribute to in this story. Even the acknowledgements are a slam poem. These people have all entertained and enlightened me, and I hope that, like Halliday's Hunt, this book will inspire others to seek out their creations. I don't think there's a single bit of media in this book that I will consume based on Ernest Cline's recommendation. Because, as mentioned, they haven't been recommendations because I've been given no reason to care about any of it. Now, for a bit of a laugh, I've compiled a list of predictions I made, just to see, what I got right and what I didn't. So this is all in a Word doc, it's a big table. Some of it I wrote a few weeks ago as I was going through. Episode 0. The copper key is around Anorak's neck and that is significant. No, Wade did not grave rob any keys from Anorak's corpse. You know when you write something down and it takes you by surprise weeks later. Episode 1 said the stacks are going to fall and kill a bunch of people, which in episode 14, yes, came true. In episode 2, I said that if your hands are occupied, you can control your avatar with voice commands, and that's going to be relevant in some sort of tied hands situation. In episode 26, Wade gets Cheeto fingers and uses voice commands, leading to a Blade Runner related plot development. Cheeto Fingers Wade is one of the greatest hits of this podcast. In episode 2, I said, it's a chapter where nothing happened and Wade had a very poor attitude towards women, which I'm assuming are going to be recurring themes. Yes. Episode 3, we're not going to see any furries, are we? No. In episode 4, I noted that the map of the oasis is shaped like a Rubik's Cube, suggesting that if it doesn't twist and change into different configurations as part of a treasure hunt, then it would be a shallow shout-out with no deeper meaning. I really should have taken that as a bad omen. Episode 5. Reality is getting worse specifically because people are spending more time in the Oasis. Yes, I predicted that. It was subtextually there. It was not the reason for things getting worse, but it was certainly exacerbated by it. More information on that last week. Episode 7. The consequences of having your avatar being killed is that you lose all the levels you've accumulated and all the gear you're currently carrying. No doubt this is to set up stakes in future chapters and what sort of tension our heroes are going to face. Yes! When Wade survived the Cataclysm, he came back with nothing, in what was supposed to be a tense situation of him having to scavenge the bomb site for weapons, that he ended up not actually using, did he? In episode 9, I suggested that Artemis was the main romance, even though it's built on a foundation of lies and cyberstalking. Yes! 1,000 times yes. Episode 12, I said that Halliday and Morrow fought over Kira Underwood. Not quite. Morrow was completely unaware that Halliday was holding a torch for her, but the fallout was exactly the same as if they had fought. Episode 13, Sorrento is only a puppet for Morrow, as the latter is described as so nice it's suspicious. No, apparently Morrow is just so nice that he's so nice, and Sorrento is the only bad guy. Episode 14, Mrs. Gilmore will be a weird data ghost. No, she was just a woman in a refrigerator. Episode 15, which do we think is worse? That Ernest Cline's idea of writing a Japanese person is to do it as a collection of stereotypes, or the possibility that these are two white players playing as Japanese avatars and it's in-universe racism? As of episode 25, Daito and Shoto were both confirmed as being Japanese people. Good work with your ethnically diverse cast, Ernie. In episodes 16 and 17, I suggested that Artemis was a Sixer spy, or at least the one spying at the end of the meeting, Ogden was spying at the end of the meeting, and Artemis is a poorly written character. In episode 20, I suggested Ultraman's beta capsule will be part of the final battle, and episode 25, I updated that prediction so that the beta capsule would be in Wade's possession and part of a "this is for Daito" moment, which was basically true. Episode 21, the catalyst will factor into the plot, yes. Episode 22, the 1981 quarter will factor into the plot, yes. In episode 25, I floated the idea that Daito and Shoto were a gay couple, but I never really treated that as a serious prediction because knowing Ernest like I do, I was guaranteed disappointment. At least this way, we were spared seeing if his idea of writing LGBT plus people was anything like his idea of writing people of colour. Not to mention the uncomfortable situation of having two boyfriends identify as brothers. Episode 27, Castle Anorak is... Episode 27, Castle Anorak is demonstrably a no PvP zone which may lead to a continuity error if it is the location of the final battle. What did I mean by that? Several Gunter clans were already on the scene, and they were making their first attempts to bring down the shield by launching high-yield nukes at it. Each detonation was followed by a brief atomic light show, and then the blast would dissipate harmlessly against the shield. So we've previously established that this tactic only works in non-PvP zones, because otherwise the weapons would bounce off the shield and kill everybody in the surrounding area. And yet this feels like the place where there's going to be a big final battle. So stay tuned if that's going to be a plot hole. Oh, okay. I'd actually completely forgotten about that. I'm calling that a plot hole because I'm always willing to put Ernie down for something. Also in episode 27, I suggested the plot would take a lower the shield by defeating the wizard subquest. In a sense that was correct, but I could not, in a million years, have predicted suicide bomber Johnny Five. And in episode 29, the third gate cannot be unlocked alone. I thought that was a power of friendship thing. Turns out it was just a Schoolhouse Rock thing, whatever that is.
It's one of those campy 70s throwbacks that appeals to Generation Xers. We need another Vietnam to thin out their ranks a little.
It was literally about having 3 people open the door. Out of a total of 20 predictions, 12 were right, 6 were wrong, 1 was a not quite, and 1 was multiple choice. That's pretty good, I would have said. I've always said this book was predictable and by the numbers, but I guess it just surprised me in some areas. I mean, don't mistake that for a compliment. And with that out of the way, we've reached the end of our show. The question on everyone's lips is, are you going to do the movie or the sequel? When I started this podcast, I had it in my head that I would, someday, tackle the movie as a one-off special episode. Maybe once I've pivoted to more visual-based YouTube content. The announcement of Ready Player 2 took me by complete surprise. That wasn't even on my radar. And as tempting as it can be to pay extra for a pre-order just to get Ernest Cline to sign it saying what a huge melt he is, what I really want to impress upon you is this. There is no ethical consumption of Ready Player One. It was the British Art Foundation that benefited from the purchase of my copy. I will never give money to Ernest Cline. Beyond that, Ready Player None happened at a specific time. I'd been looking in charity shops for a few years. The book had been out of the zeitgeist for the better part of a decade, and the movie had come and gone, leaving no mark on the pop cultural landscape. Even some of its evangelicals had turned on it, with the rise of socially aware commentary on the internet. This podcast came out when it felt like the only people who remembered Ready Player One were the ones who hated it. The announcement of the sequel brought the marks back out of the woodwork, reactivated like sleeper agents. All eyes are on Cline again. Maybe some will realise what complete dreck they read 9 years ago. Maybe it'll be time for this podcast to blow up. But if I attract the wrong kind of attention, I fear the legal repercussions of basically producing a 9 hours long abridged audiobook. Ready Player One is no longer so on current that I felt like I could get away with it. If the sequel podcast is coming, it'll be when the hype has died down and the heat is off. But someday, when the timing's right and the world needs me, I'll be there. So what's next for me? Well, if you want to be the first to know, you can follow me on Twitter @TheLastGherkin or follow this show on Twitter @RPN_pod. Whatever comes next on my YouTube channel, The Last Gherkin, make sure you've hit that subscribe button and you'll be the first to see it. For MP3 downloads of this podcast, there's a zip file down in the description below and you can just have all of them all at once. If you like listening and you want to show me some support, head over to ko-fi.com/thelastgherkin and, just maybe bung us a few quid. There's no obligation to do so, only support if you can, and anything is appreciated really. If you've listened along for 40 weeks, then thank you for joining me on this long journey through regurgitated pop culture. I've been Gherkin, you've been the audience, thank you for playing. Now, there's one last thing to do. Come with me and you'll be in a world of perfect recreation. Take a look and you'll see into perfect recreation. There is nothing in here that demonstrates imagination. What we'll see will defy explanation. It started 40 years ago when Halliday and Morrow decided to create the simulation of tomorrow. Pop culture in VR. They called it the Oasis. No black media though, it was a little bit racist. It was a hit. They were millionaires. Everybody on the planet was buying their wares. But one day, Halliday suddenly died. His fortune's in an Easter egg hidden inside. Come with me and you'll be in a world of perfect recreation. Take a look and you'll see into self-gratification. Doubled up self-inserts and egotistical narration. It is plain that what we see is what Ernie longs to be. Enter Wade, an urchin from the slums. His obsession with the 80s helps him get things done. Spent his days doing nothing in H's chat room until a stroke of luck helped him find the tomb. He jousted for the first key in the Lich King's crypt. Artemis was there first, but he gave her the slip to a War Games challenge, which he couldn't fail because Sorenzo and the Sixers were hot on his tail.
Come with me and you'll be in a world of perfect recreation. There are worrying views on Japan's population. Honor bound, tightly wound, interchangeable because they're Asian. Ernie, please, may I have an explanation?
4 months later, Wade thought he had a chance with Artie, but she rejected his ass at Og's birthday party. She found the Nixie first and Wade was ashamed. He sold his sex robot and got back in the game. Arcades, Black Tiger, guitars, Blade Runner, Wade mastered them all like a superstar gunner. He needed to figure out his plan of attack. The last gate awaits in Castle Anorak.
Living in a white nerd's paradise. Nothing to challenge or trump you. No race relations there to stump you. A girl who really means yes when she dumps you. Come with me and you'll be in a world of stolen information. Reaching private boundaries, no fear of recrimination. Saving pics of a girl, it's implied they're used for masturbation. Ernest needs a good hit of maturation.
Wade got himself captured. It was a minor hassle because he escaped and headed to the castle. The race was on and he showed some hustle. He won the egg in the final puzzle. It gave him godlike powers and financial bliss. And he got a kiss from Artemis, cause women are prizes to be won. And that's the story of Ready Player One.
Hopefully, now you see such a literary abomination. These behaviors and deeds, I discourage imitation. Just one look in this book, it may turn you to inebriation. Looking back, you won't see what the future needs to be.
Wade didn't learn anything. H the black lesbian didn't affect anything. Leave Artemis alone. Don't forget the transphobia. Ernie Klein, post your location. I just want to talk. Game over.